Hey there. So, something a little different. Thought I would go through the Monster Hunter Rise demo, kind of my thoughts and feelings and the changes they've made. Let's start with the changes to the core gameplay, like movement and the Petalace system. As someone who didn't really like the Monster Hunter World movement style, I thought it was a bit much. I've got to be honest, the Rise movement is phenomenal. I'm falling in love with it. The ability to move around, climb anything, pretty much just sit out attacks and then smack down on the monster's head is just brilliant. Of course, another one of these changes is the fact that you can use items in the air. So, stuff like a monster underneath you can chuck a barrel bomb down and just dunk them. One of the changes I'm not really happy with is the Petalace system. I'm seeing it as a bit of equipment. We only view one in the demo, so others might differ, but from the one we saw, it gives you minor buffs, stuff that a max potion would have done in other games. You've got to kind of run around the map collecting these little birds to get the buffs. Not a huge fan of it. It seems like pointless busy work. Let's move on to talk about the weapons then. First up is going to be the Greatsword, and it's pretty much unchanged from Iceborne. You've got your true charge slash, all that sort of stuff. It's all about picking your opportunities, doing big damage. If you're happy with the Greatsword then, you'll be happy with the Greatsword now. Then we've got the Silkbind moves. Now, the first one for the Greatsword, the Hunting Edge. It's alright for doing main damage, but I find it a bit awkward to use. There's times where you cover more distance than you think you would, so you end up missing the monster, kind of just whiffing the attack. It's, like I said, it's alright, but not great. Now, the second one, Power Sheath. That is good for escape. It helps with your mobility a lot as a greatsword user. It's something you want. The damage buff from it doesn't seem to last that long. It's okay, but it's not the main use of the skill. All in all, though, I'm liking the greatsword in Rise. As I said, if you liked it in Iceborne, you're going to like it in this game. My one hope is that we can get a Silkbind that will replace the Hunting Edge. Something like a counter. A lot of other weapons in this game seem to have counter Silkbinds. Moving on to the Longsword. And again, it's pretty much the same as Iceborne, which was my favourite version of the Longsword and one of my favourite weapons in that game. The removal of the Helmbreaker to make it a Silkbind kind of makes sense for this game. You don't want to give them too many buttons. But yeah, speaking of the Silkbinds, the first one, Soaring Kick, that's your Helmbreaker. It seems a bit more finicky. I think need to hit a soft spot to actually trigger the Helmbreaker. But other than that, it's Helmbreaker. It's damage. Go for it. Now, the other Silkbind, Serene Pose, it's counter. As I said with the Greatsword, it seems a lot of these weapons are getting counter Silkbinds, allowing you to stay, up in the monster's face, be more aggressive, be more reactive to their attacks, and just counter them. All in all, though, the Longsword is probably one of my favourite weapons in this game as well. So, can't wait to trip people online with it. Moving on to the Sword and Shield, and again, it's pretty similar to Iceborne. They've given you this new Spinning Reaper attack as your kind of reposition / combo ender, which seems pretty good. And they've given a guard point on your guard / bird, that's whatever. The Silkbinds now, Falling Shadow, the first one, is an excellent gap closer. If you miss, there's not that much end lag to it, so it's not a high commitment move. You can use it to get up into the monster's face, stay there. Great. The second Silk Art, though, Windmill, it's not really that useful. You can do more mount damage kind of with your normal jump combos and using Falling Shadow, so that's definitely one that's going to get replaced with the other Silk Arts when we know what they are. But all in all, though, I'm really liking the Sword and Shield. Probably going to be picking this up a lot more in Rise than I did in the other games. Next up, we got the Dual Blades, and I've never been the biggest fan. They're not really my weapon of choice, but I do like that they've added sprint speed onto the Demon mode now. Gives you a lot more mobility. The Silk Binds, the first one, Piercing Bind. You stab them with a kunai, any attacks on that area kind of accumulate damage, leading to a explosion. It's fine, it's extra damage, when you've got the monster downs, you jab them with a kunai, then do a quick demon flurry. That's pretty much all it's there for. The second one, however, Shredded Vault, that one's great. You dodge through either attacks, or if you miss the attack, it's a bit of extra mobility. But if you dodge through an attack, it leads to a quick couple of counter hits, bit of extra damage. All in all, dual blades are alright, but again, it's probably not something I'll pick up again this generation. Moving on to the hammer. And I'm really liking what they're doing with the new stance thing. Rather than having power charge, they have the stance change. Opens up a lot of opportunities for, different moves. The moving one is a really nice gap close rather than the spin attack that leaves you vulnerable. Really fun weapon. I'm probably going to be picking it up as one of my main weapons. For the silk binds, the first one, Spinning Bludgeon, is just the sliding attack from Monster Hunter World. So, you use it, you get your mount damage. Fairly simple. The second silk bind, the Impact Crater, that is good for when you've got the monster downed. Both of these can be charged up with your ZR button to do more damage. Now, the Impact Crater, decent chunk of damage, but as I said, the hammer is looking like a really fun weapon, something I'm going to be picking up as one of my mains. Next up is probably the main showcase of this demo, the new and improved hunting horn. Not a massive fan. I think they've kind of oversimplified it a bit too much. Personally, it doesn't feel like a hunting horn now, it just feels like a better hammer. And that kind of ties to the gameplay as well. I know values will probably change from this to the main game, but I was getting a lot more stuns, I was doing a lot more damage, I was kind of running a bloody train on Mizutsune. And like I said, it's a better hammer now rather than its own thing. For the Silk Binds, Silk Bind 1, Slide Beat, it's a movement skill. I think gives you self-improvement and attack up, but it's a movement skill. I'm likely to change that out with the other Silk Binds. The second Silk Bind, Earthshaker, does a lot of damage. Like, I think on the demo it's hitting like over 200 damage with the 2 hits of it. When the monster's down, pop that, you're doing a ton of damage, you're getting a load of mounts. It is what it is. Like I said, it's changed, it's definitely improved, but I'm probably not going to play it. I'm not a huge fan. Moving on to the Lance now. I've never really been much of a Lance player, so my knowledge is very limited. However, the new charge suite they've added, I can see having some uses. The Silk Binds, the first one being Twin Vine, you jab the monster with the kunai, and then for a set amount of time, if you press ZL and B, you can hop to the monster. If you don't input anything, you guard all the way through the jump, so I can see it being useful in some safe approaches. The damage from the jump attacks isn't really anything major, so it's probably best just to stick to the safe approach. The second Silk Bind, Anchor Rage, is just a counter. If you block it, you get a damage buff for a few seconds, so it's fairly, self-explanatory Silk Bind. Moving swiftly onto the Gunlance, and they fly now. I really like how you can load the worm stakes after a full charge burst with back and A, and the Wyvern Fire now guards when you're charging it, which I can see being used more aggressively. For the Silk Binds, the first one, Hail Cutter, is it's a jump up and a slam back down for a chance of a full burst. The second one, Guard Edge, you counter and sharpen your weapon, which is great for the Gunlance, ways to sharpen for free. I'll take them. The other things I want to mention is the fact that the wide Gunlance now has KO status on the attacks to the face. So I can see that being used when you're not in a party with a hammer user or a hunting horn. Next up is the Switch Axe, and there's a lot more emphasis on playing both axe and sword mode, I can see. The fact that instead of wild axe mode, we get an increase in your gauge generation after doing the heavy slam. The fact that once you hit max potency as well, it also affects your axe mode as well as your sword is pretty handy, and adds to the versatility of the weapon. For the silk binds, the first one, Invincible Gambit, it's a charge forward with hyper armor. Does a lot of main damage, but it's risky because even though you don't flinch, you still take all that damage. The second one, the Charger, is great if you don't ever want to come out of sword mode. Up next is the Charge Blade, my personal favourite weapon since its release in Monster Hunter 4. And I'm kind of sad that we've lost Savage Axe from Iceborne. Hopefully it comes back as a silk bind, because we kind of need it in a game as mobile as this. Now, another reason we need it is they've nerfed the file explosions from SAED. They're a lot narrower, and it makes lining up full burst really awkward. Moving on to the silk binds, the first one, Morphin Advance, is a gap closer. It's something that if we get Savage Axe as a silk bind, I am dropping straight away. Now, the second silk bind, the Counter Peak Performance, is amazing. You walk into an arena, the monster roars, you pop it, you've got red shield. The monster tries to attack, you pop it, you've got full vials. It's great. If we can get that with Savage Axe, it will be amazing. Probably going to be maining this because it's Charge Blade. I love it too much. Moving on to the last of the melee weapons, the Insect Glaive. Now, other than getting a crappy insect, my main worry would be that the niche of the Insect Glaive, the air mobility, would kind of get downplayed now that everyone else can do it. However, you're still capable of doing very silly stuff in the air. The Silk Binds, the first one being Silk Bind Vault, is fine. It's a vault, but you can do it in the air. So you can be very, very mobile in the air, which is kind of the Insect Glaive's niche. The second one, the Recalk Insect, is not one that I really found myself using. It's a backwards evasive jump, and you call your Kinsect back. Not much else to it. Now, I'm not much of a gunner, but I'll quickly run through the different guns. The light bowgun is fine. The first silk bind, the Glide, is a close range attack. It's got a very, very close hitbox on the actual attack, so I don't see much use for that one. The second one, however, the Fanning Vault, is great. Jump over the head, drop a Wyvern Blast on them, and just keep shooting the Wyvern Blast. Do mount damage, crack up a load of damage, it's fine. So the heavy bowgun's new thing seems to be charging your shots. Now, without charging them, they're doing about the same damage as the light bowgun. So to do the damage you want from a heavy bowgun, looks like you're going to have to hold the charge. The silk binds, the first one, the counter, is great. You lock yourself in place, you absorb one hit, so multi-hit attacks will screw you over. And you do a large amount of damage with the counter-attack. It's its own little shot. The second silk bind is just a free move, which is great for a slow weapon like the heavy bowgun. Just get out of danger. Other than that, the heavy bowgun's fine. It looks pretty fun to play, actually. Moving on to the last of the weapons, the bow. I know stamina was an issue during the demo because we didn't have any of the skills, so that'll change in the main game. But other than that, it was fine. I like that we've got shot types back rather than having just a generic shot. And the archetypes, so we don't just have a rain of pellets that annoys the hell out of everyone. The silk binds, the first one, focus shot, was your stamina regen. You jump backwards, you regen a load of stamina as long as you stay crouched. It was fine. The second one, Herculean draw. You dash forward, you get a damage boost for a little while. I didn't really see much use in it. Finally, I just want to quickly touch on the Palymutes and the Wyvern Riding. Now, the Palymutes are great because I'm a dog person. I'm going to pick doggos all the time. And the fact that you can ride them, and the way that you ride them is pretty much how I wanted tail riding to go in World. So rather than being at the mercy of, AI doing whatever the hell they want to get to the path that you've designated, you can actually tell them where to go properly, which is brilliant. Now, Wyvern Riding is great. I prefer it much more to, your traditional mounts that were in 4 and Generations and World, and the Clutch Claw flinch spamming them. The fact that they're resistant, so you only get at most 2 a hunt, is great. It actually lets you rely on fighting the monster rather than just slamming him into a wall and knocking him around. The other thing I like about it is the fact that Turf Wars have a point rather than just grabbing shinies and doing a bit of extra uncontrolled damage to the monster. You jump on whoever loses the Turf War, ride them and smash them into the other monster a bit more. It's great. So, those are my thoughts on the demo and what Monster Hunter Rise is looking like. How do you guys feel? Let me know below, I suppose. And if you'd like to see more of this, check me out at Twitch. The link is in the description below. See you.